The letter she wasn't meant to read. Hey, night listener. Tonight, we enter the shadows. Dim streetlights flicker against rain-slicked pavement. Water traces crooked lines down your window like veins breaking through the surface of old skin. You hear footsteps echo in the alley below, even though you know no one's supposed to be out this late. If this story found you, maybe it's because you've been followed too. So, before we vanish into this mystery, like the video and subscribe only if you can handle the truth buried beneath the lies. Drop a comment with your location and tell us, are you drawn to the truth, the thrill, or the justice? Now lock your doors, take a deep breath, and follow me into the dark. You don't remember falling asleep, but you wake up at your desk, face pressed against an old manila envelope. No label, no return address, only your name written across the seal in her handwriting. You sit up slowly. The air feels stale, like it's been holding its breath. The envelope is warm. You open it. Inside, a single folded letter, torn at the top, like it was ripped from a spiral pad in a rush. The ink is smudged in places, as if her hand shook or tears hit the page. You read the first line. If they find this before you do, burn it. Your pulse spikes. You check the timestamp at the bottom 4 days ago, but she's only been missing since last night. The second line reads, I told the truth. I wasn't supposed to. You stop reading because you already know what comes next. Not the words, just the feeling, that creeping, acidic certainty that truth is not a cure. It's a trigger. You finish the letter. It's not long. She names names, describes the evidence no one admitted existed, mentions a second witness, someone she calls the sleeper. Then she says something that shouldn't be possible. They'll rewrite the records, the files, the statements, even me. You'll forget I testified. Until you read this, you reread that line and realize you already forgot. You were at the trial. You sat through the whole thing, the verdict, the sentencing. But now that you think about it, you don't remember her voice. You don't remember her on the stand at all. The transcript said she declined to speak. But this letter is her testimony. You search your desk drawer, frantic. You find the trial folder, flip through it. Her name is there crossed out in red ink, not blacked out, not erased, crossed out, like a correction. On the last page, a handwritten note also in red. Witness removed veracity. Breach. You close your eyes, try to breathe, but your heart's already pounding. Because this isn't just a cover-up, it's a reversion. Someone rewound the story and rewrote her truth. And now she's gone. From the record, from memory, from you. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. And she had been too quiet for too long until she spoke, until she told the truth. And it ruined everything. Her voice on a tape that doesn't exist. You can't sleep. The letter keeps pulling you back. Not just the words her handwriting. You can still see the loops in her lowercase ga, the hard, sharp corners of her teeth. She always pressed too hard on the page, always wrote like the truth might run away if she didn't pin it down. It's nearly 3 m. When you finally get up, the hallway is dark, too quiet. Even the fridge hum feels muted, like the house itself is holding its breath. You open your office drawer, bottom right. Behind the loose photographs and the receipt from that diner you swear you never visited. The cassette is there. You don't remember putting it there. You don't even own a tape recorder. But there it is, unlabeled, except for a single word, written in black marker across its face. Heard. Your hands move without you telling them to. You slip it into the old player you keep for evidence review. You tell yourself you're just verifying, documenting, staying objective. But deep down, you know that's a lie. You press play, a low hiss, static, and then her voice, calm, flat, almost mechanical. If this tape plays, then they haven't erased you yet. They will. The hair on your arms lifts. You haven't heard her speak in days, weeks. You can't even tell anymore. They erased me, not from life, from story. I told the truth, and it didn't matter. She pauses. You hear her breathing. It's strange, familiar, like hearing your own memories narrated from behind a wall. They'll say I wasn't at the trial, that I declined, that I disappeared before the case began. They've already changed the footage. You fumble for your phone, find the courtroom archive. You search the timestamp from her letter, 2:47 p.m., Friday, right before the cross-examination of the key witness. You hit play. The footage is clean. The bench is empty. Her seat is unoccupied. But on the audio, you hear her voice, quietly, distantly, exactly as it plays on the tape. The man in the blue suit wasn't Everett Cole. He never entered the apartment. The blood was already there. You pause the footage, but the tape keeps going. You think I betrayed the system, but the system was never supposed to hold the truth. It was only meant to survive it. They'll rewrite me, but they can't rewrite this tape. Except there's something wrong. Your screen shows the folder name Cole V. State Loop 5A Loop. You scan the rest of the files. There are other names. Loop 5B, Loop 6, Loop 6 Alt. Each one marked sealed. You hear her again on the tape. You'll start to question the verdict. The evidence? Yourself. Good. That's how it begins. She laughs. Barely. The truth isn't what sets you free. It's what wakes you up. You pause the tape and realize something you hadn't before. The voice isn't just hers. It's layered. There's a second voice underneath hers. Slower, like a whisper behind a wall. You rewind, play again, listen closely, and beneath her final words, tell the truth next time. You hear your own voice, whispering, I won't. You rewind again, but this time, there's nothing. The tape is silent, blank. You eject it, and the word heard is gone. Just a plain cassette now, as if it never spoke, as if it erased itself the moment you believed her. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about the truth. It was about control. And truth is a tape they make sure no one plays twice. The clock that stopped at her name. You wake up at 2:47 p.m. Exactly. No alarm, no trigger, just an involuntary jolt. Like your body knew something your brain hasn't caught up to. You look at the wall. The old analog clock, the one you haven't changed the battery in for months, now points to 2:47. The second hand twitches once, then stops. You stare at it for a long time. It doesn't move again. Downstairs, your phone buzzes. You're not expecting a call. The caller ID flashes unknown, but something in your gut says, answer it. You do. Static, then silence, then a voice hers. Again, they reset the files, but time doesn't lie. You want to respond, but your mouth is dry. Your voice is gone. You can only listen. When I said I told the truth, I didn't mean just on the stand. I meant before. Before any of it, there's a shuffling sound. Pages. Fabric wind, I named them. The ones running the loop. The ones who told us we were witnesses, not suspects. But that was the trick. We were all suspects. Just none of us knew which crime we were part of. Click. The line goes dead. Your phone screen glitches, then clears. No record of the call. No number. No voicemail. You check the courtroom records again. 2:47 p.m. That timestamp again. You dig through archived footage on a drive you were never supposed to have. This time, you slow it, frame by frame. There's the judge, gavel lifted. There's the defense attorney, leaning forward. There's the courtroom clock above the bench. And in that one moment, one frame only, you see her in the witness chair. Just one frame, then gone. You rewind, play it again. Now she's not there, just empty wood and a hum in the air. You pause the video, print the frame, you compare it to the official court transcript. It reads, "No testimony provided, witness unavailable," but the printed image in your hand tells a different story. You scan it, run facial recognition. The software returns a match, but not for her. It lists the witness as same entity, user ID match. It's you. Same eyes, same jaw, same glitch in the left corner of the mouth when speaking. But it's her, not you. Or maybe both. You flip the photo over. Someone's scrawled a note in red ink. Time resets when truth speaks too loud. You step away from the desk. Suddenly, the air feels wrong, pressurized. The hands of the wall clock begin to vibrate backward. 2:47 becomes 2:46, then 2:45, and you remember the courtroom, the sound of the gavel, the judge's voice, but this time it's distorted, rewound, unraveling, and over it, her voice whispers, "They said truth would save us. They forgot truth doesn't ask for permission." You grab the printout, stuff it in your coat, run out into the street. But something's changed. The streets are empty. The people stilled, mid-step, mid-conversation. You wave your hand in front of a man holding a coffee. He doesn't blink, doesn't move. You tap your phone. No signal. 2:07 p.m. And time has stopped. Only you are left moving, and maybe her, somewhere, still telling the truth in a world trying to rewind it out of existence. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. And clocks, you've now learned, don't tick in truth's direction. The photograph everyone forgot. The photo doesn't belong to you. You're sure of that. It was slipped beneath your door, sometime between the ticking clock and the stillness in the street. No knock, no sound, just a photo, a grainy Polaroid, faded around the edges, like it's existed longer than the story you're living in. At first, you think it's a courtroom shot, wide angle, full gallery, faces watching something out of frame. You count 6 jurors, 3 attorneys, 1 judge. You're there too, and so is she. But your eye catches something else. In the far left corner, a figure just barely visible, standing in the shadows near the fire exit, out of focus, more shape than person. The light doesn't touch them. But that's not what's wrong. What's wrong is that when you flip through the official trial images stored in your archive, the same exact photo exists, same framing, same timestamp, same everything, except the figure is gone, not erased, never there. You put the 2 images side by side. Your version, the one slipped under your door, has a signature on the back. 1 word, written in thick red ink. Remember, you scan both into your system. Run a digital overlay. The software can't reconcile them. It crashes 3 times, then finally returns an error message. File conflict. Cannot resolve dual realities. You don't laugh, but you almost do, because you're starting to feel it now, like a dream you're not waking up from, but rather waking into. You pin the photo on your corkboard, next to her letter. next to the blank tape. Your wall is starting to look like a crime scene no one filed, and maybe that's the point. Your fingers trace the blurred figure in the photo again. Something about the shape, the tilt of the head, the way they're standing, half turned, pulls at your memory like a loose thread. You've seen that posture before, in a mirror, in your own reflection. You dig through your drawer, find the broken compact mirror she left behind once during an interview. You'd kept it, not out of sentimentality, but because of the crack. The fracture ran straight through your own face when you looked into it. You hold it up now. Look at the figure again, then at yourself. The curve of the shoulder, the way the left hand clenches. It's you, it's been you, watching the trial from the sidelines. The courtroom you thought you only remembered attending. You were there, but not as a detective, not even as a witness, as the missing piece, the shadow no one could name, the one person not accounted for in any official document, but appearing now, uninvited, in every layer of her truth. You step back from the board, breathe deep, and for a split second, you see the figure in the photo move, not physically, but in your mind. It shifts, tilts its head, as if it can see you, and suddenly the memory cracks open. You standing in that courtroom, watching her, begging her with your eyes not to say it, not to speak. But she did. She told the truth, and you felt everything start to break. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about the truth, it was about control. And now the photograph remembers what you tried to forget. The bruise that wasn't there before. It appears on your wrist just after midnight. Small, deep violet, circular, almost too perfect. Like someone pressed something into your skin while you slept. Except you haven't slept. Not really. Not since the letter. You stare at it under the harsh white of the bathroom light. The edges almost shimmer. You touch it. It doesn't hurt, but your chest tightens anyway, because you've seen this bruise before. Not on yourself, on her. In the photos from the hospital report she handed you months ago, the ones you filed and never reviewed, because the case had moved on. Now, you pull them from the archive, fingers shaking. Image 3 of 17, left wrist, same size, same shape, same impossible symmetry. Back then, she said, they held me down, but I don't remember who. Just cold hands and fluorescent light. You chalked it up to stress, repressed trauma, but now your wrist matches hers, and no one's touched you. You go back to the photo, re-examine the bruise, overlay both images. The software gives you a match, exact, like a stamp, like a seal, or a key. Your phone pings, a message from an unlisted number. Now you're marked. Be careful who sees it. You reply, who is this? No answer. Instead, your phone vibrates again. This time, it auto-opens the image file you just overlaid. Except now, there's a third wrist added. Same mark, same symmetry. You don't recognize it at first, but there's a date in the file name, Cole Exhibit C, first interview, pre-arrest. You scan the still image. It's Everett Cole, the man convicted, wearing the bruise too. Except it's not a bruise. Is it? Not anymore. It's a signature. You pull up every file, every image you have of anyone connected to the trial. 3 witnesses, 2 attorneys, 1 judge. They all have it. Sometimes on the wrist, sometimes the shoulder, once on the neck. Just visible under a collar. All the same diameter, same hue, same silent presence. You pull your sleeve down, not to hide it, just to not see it. Because seeing it means you're part of this, means you've been part of it longer than you want to admit. You open the transcript again, her testimony. the part they deleted. But now you remember a fragment she once whispered in passing, in that voice that barely rose above breath. They only mark the ones who know too much. It's how they track the memory drift. Memory drift. You stumble back, sit down, try to process. If the bruise is real, if it's on everyone who touched this case, then the lie isn't just in the verdict. It's in you. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. And your body, your skin has just joined the testimony they tried to erase. The stranger who knew the verdict. You notice him for the first time outside the courthouse, not inside, not in the trial photos, not on any official list. But now, looking back, he's always just outside the frame. Gray trench coat, faded hat, a face blurred not by movement, but by memory itself. Like your brain refuses to hold the shape. You're flipping through old press coverage of the trial, trying to find something, anything that isn't scripted or redacted. And there he is, in a photo dated 2 days before the verdict, standing across the street, looking straight at the courthouse. More precisely, looking straight at you. At first, you think it's coincidence, a trick of angles, but then you find another, and another. Each time, he's closer. Each time. The photo is dated before a critical moment, a filed motion, a sealed piece of evidence, the dismissal of a second witness no one ever cross-examined. You search for facial recognition. The result returns one word: anomalous. That's it. No name, no match, no digital fingerprint. You print the image, pin it on the board, next to the bruised wrist, next to the photo where you were the figure in the corner, next to her letter, the one you now read every night before sleep. Then you check your voicemail again, not for new messages, for deleted ones. And there it is, filed under undeliverable. A voice, not hers. His. Verdict's already written. The courtroom's just the echo. Click. That's all. But the timestamp is chilling. 3:21 a.m. 2 days before deliberation. Same as the photo. He knew. Before the jury did. Before the defense. Before even you. You go outside, trying to shake the growing vertigo. The sense that reality is stretching too thin around the edges. The street is quiet, but there's a figure at the corner. Gray coat, faded hat, watching your building. You don't move. You don't breathe. He raises a hand, not to wave, to point, at your window. Then he turns and walks into the fog. You rush down the stairs, heart pounding. But when you hit the street, gone. No footsteps, no trace, not even a footprint in the rain-softened ground. Back upstairs, you find something slipped under your door. Another photograph. This one's new, still warm. In it, you're sitting at your desk, reading her letter, and behind you, barely visible in the mirror over your shoulder, is the man in the gray coat. Inside the room, you spin, eyes scanning every corner. Nothing. But taped to your computer monitor is a note. Ask why the verdict came before her truth. You tear it down, fingers shaking. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about the truth. It was about control. And now control has a face you can't remember, but can't unsee. Her story changed nothing. And that's suspicious. Truth is supposed to shift the ground beneath your feet. But when she told hers, nothing moved. No gasp in the courtroom. No objection. No shift in the judge's face. Just silence. Clean, practiced silence. You replay the moment from every available angle, every stolen file, every hidden audio feed. She sat upright, both hands folded like they were tethered by something heavier than nerves. She looked directly at Everett Cole and said, "He wasn't there. I was, but not for the reason you think." And then nothing. The next file resumes with closing arguments, as if the recording was sliced open and sutured back without anyone noticing. But now that you're listening for it, really listening, you hear something else. A hum, low, mechanical, like a power surge, just under the surface. A frequency designed to dull, to suppress. You run a filter sweep at exactly the moment she speaks her second sentence. The waveform flatlines. The one who should have stood trial, gone. No audio. The court transcript reads only, inaudible. You find the official summary. No mention of her. No cross-examination. No rebuttal. It's as if she never opened her mouth. But you were there. You remember the feeling. That thick, unnatural stillness. The kind that happens when a room is trained to ignore something. You call the clerk's office, pretending to be media. Ask about the day she testified. They pause. She declined. "Sir." You ask again. This time, firmer. The voice on the line hesitates. Even if she had testified, it wouldn't have changed the verdict. You freeze, even if, but how would that matter? Unless she had. Your voice drops. What was the verdict based on? A beat? Pattern recognition. Not just evidence. Statistical model confirms guilt at 94.7%. You stare at your phone like it's speaking in tongues. A statistical model. Since when does justice require a confidence interval? You open the sealed exhibits folder you found earlier. The one marked Loop 6A, inside a chart, redacted, labeled Truth, Impact Factor, Suppressed Testimony, Trial Paths. At the bottom, handwritten in the margin, Input integrity compromised. Verdict, stability preserved. Verdict, stability. Like the outcome mattered more than the process, more than her, more than you. You close the file, heart hammering. Go to your whiteboard. Under her truth, you write 3 bullet points. No change in outcome, no memory of testimony. Verdict precedes event. You circle the last one twice, because that's the fracture in the timeline. And where there's one fracture, there are others. You pull out your old notes from the original interviews, back when she first came forward, back when she first whispered, "They don't care if it's true, only if it fits." Back when you ignored her because it was easier to believe the story had already ended. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. And she told the truth, but the system never blinked. Because the system was never designed to listen. The journal with tomorrow's entry, you find it under her floorboard. Not intentionally. You weren't looking for it. You were just pacing, the way you do when thoughts won't sit still, when they start chewing through your sense of time. The floor creaked. A loose board shifted under your foot, and beneath it, a journal wrapped in butcher paper, tied tight with red string. It smells like dust and salt. Inside, the handwriting is unmistakable hers, tight, slanted, always in black ink, always with dates scrawled like anchors to a timeline she didn't trust. You flip through the entries. Most of them feel familiar. Recounts of days you both lived through, or thought you did. Witness prep, long nights, coffee gone cold. Her jokes about how the justice system ran on broken clocks and expensive pens. But then you hit today's date and stop breathing because the page is already filled, not with reflections, with a forecast. Tomorrow I will vanish from the record. My name will be struck, my voice extracted, but he will find the photo by dusk. He will hold it under lamplight and see himself in the edges. He won't say it aloud, but he'll feel it, the guilt buried in familiarity. You drop the book, your lamp flickers. You did hold the photo under lamplight. You did feel something wrong. She wrote this before it happened. And below that entry, in smaller writing, he'll read this and finally understand our lives were never moving forward, just circling, tighter and tighter. They only let us speak when they've already decided what the story needs. You tear through the rest of the journal. Dates stretch into next week, next month. One entry says he'll question whether she ever existed. Another, he'll realize the trial was never about Everett Cole. It was about the one watching. Then, one final page undated. It reads, he'll find the room, the door behind the bookshelf, the one that hums when the lights go out. You close the journal. You're trembling now. You check the bookshelf. Your bookshelf because something in your blood already knows what comes next. Your fingers run along the back row. History texts, case files, an old crime novel she gave you with all the names redacted. You pull that book. Nothing. Then you flick off the lamp, and in the silence, you hear it. A hum, low, vibrational, behind the wall. You press your palm against the panel. It's warm. Then it shifts, just slightly. You step back, heart in your throat. You stare at the journal again. Its presence no longer feels passive. She wrote you into a maze, one where truth leaves breadcrumbs and guilt leaves echoes. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about the truth. It was about control. And the journal. The journal is proof that tomorrow's been decided before you ever open your mouth. The room that shouldn't be there. The wall gives way with a soft click. No scrape, no creak, just obedience. You push, and a panel swings inward, revealing a narrow passageway where there should be insulation and studs. No blueprint ever mentioned a room here. No architect would have dared tuck a door behind the lies, but you step through anyway. The hallway is short, barely 6 feet, but your sense of time stretches the longer you walk it. The hum from earlier grows louder, more mechanical, more deliberate. A pulsing sound, like an old projector rolling through film reels of stories no one's supposed to remember. Then you reach the end, and the room opens like a secret inhaling. It's small, square, windowless, lined floor to ceiling with recorders, cassette decks, reel-to-reel machines, audio spools labeled in her handwriting. The air smells like dust and ozone. In the center, a chair, facing a wall of screens. Every screen plays a different version of the same event. The trial. In one, she testifies with fire in her eyes. In another, she's escorted out before speaking. In a third, she never appears. A fourth shows you at the witness stand sweating, stammering, your voice barely above a whisper as you say something you don't remember ever saying. I only followed orders. You stumble back. The screens don't flicker. They hold. On a small table nearby, there's a stack of labeled tapes. Truth, a original testimony. Truth, B, altered loop. Jury, compromised. Truth, C, silence. Integration, truth, D. Final verdict, stable. You eject one. Truth, slip it into the nearest deck. Her voice, you'll find the room. You always do, but you never stay long. Because if you listen to all of it, something changes. Not just in the case, in you. You freeze. That's why they built this place. Not to hide the truth, to contain it. Truth doesn't die. It echoes. It multiplies. But it doesn't ask for permission. And it never stops. Once it starts, one of the screens sparks, then cuts to black. You pull out another tape. Truth D. Insert. Play. Witness unavailable. Evidence sealed. Timeline stabilized. Verdict. Guilty. Your voice again. He was there. I saw him. I swear it. But you never said that. Or maybe you did. Because the truth here is liquid, malleable, looped, filtered through what they needed it to be. On the wall, etched in something deep and burnt, are the words, every version costs something. You look around the room, at the spools, at the redundant footage, at the layered voices, hers, yours, theirs, and the worst part. You feel it now, like an old bruise rising under the surface of memory. You've been here before. You left something behind. Maybe it was your certainty. Maybe it was your silence. Or maybe it was the only truth that mattered. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. And this room, this is where the truth waits patiently for you to remember which version you helped bury. The voice that knew your secrets. The door clicks shut behind you. You don't remember touching it, don't remember moving. But now it's sealed, and the hum of the machines quiets like they were waiting for your full attention. And then a voice, not hers, yours, but it's not a recording. It's speaking now, in real time, from the old reel-to-reel system against the far wall. You made the wrong choice. You freeze. The deck spins forward, tape running, spooling your breath into mechanical memory. You saw the evidence and still testified against her. You try to speak, but your throat tightens. There's something in the air, thick, metallic, like regret distilled into oxygen. You told yourself it was just a job. The voice is calm, icy, yours, with all the warmth removed. She gave you the missing file. She begged you to look. Instead, you turned it in, labeled inconclusive. The screen beside you flashes an image. You in the evidence room, holding a file marked Subject 5 Testimonial Paradox. In the video, you hesitate, then slip it into the bottom drawer of the wrong case folder. You watch yourself betray her, and somehow, even now, you try to rationalize it. You knew, but pretended you didn't. The voice repeats your thoughts before you can form them. You scan the room. Something feels wrong with the lighting now. Dimmer. The shadows hang heavier. The tape clicks. A new voice takes over. Hers. But it's not a testimony. It's a conversation. One you never remembered having. You said they'd silence me. That the trial was a formality. I asked you why. You didn't answer. She pauses. You can hear her breathing. But your eyes did. You weren't afraid of them. You were afraid of the truth unraveling you. Another tape. Auto loads. Your voice again. If you speak, it's out of my hands. You're on your own. You remember now. That moment. In the stairwell. When you passed her the file back under the table. When you whispered, "Make it count." But she did not. She looked at you like someone watching a stranger impersonate an old friend. And now this room, this silent gallery of versions forces you to live each contradiction in stereo. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about the truth. It was about control. And this voice, your own, plays it all back like a confession carved in rewind. Behind you, another screen blinks to life. This time it's not footage. It's a mirror, just your face. And over it, projected in flickering red, which version are you? The file that wasn't yours but had your name. It's at the bottom of a rusted drawer, filed under a case number you don't recognize, TR017G. No name, no subject, just That code and a thin red string tied around the folder, like someone wanted to make sure it didn't open by accident. You untie the string. Inside, there are only 3 pages, but each one punches a hole through your certainty. Page 1, a surveillance transcript, dated 3 months before the trial, labeled pre-interview. Subject B. You start reading. Subject B exhibits early markers of loop drift, suggests awareness of falsified narrative, but resists confrontation. Memory imprint partially successful. Observed hesitations in timeline recall. And then the name your name. Plain, bold, unmistakable. You were subject B. You grip the edges of the paper so hard your knuckles ache. Page 2. A photo, you and her, in a room that doesn't exist anymore, burned down in a courthouse fire years ago. Only you remember it, because you were there when it burned. She was standing next to you, holding the box labeled Truth A. Smoke curling around her eyes like tears refusing to fall. This photo shouldn't exist. You turn it over, written in her handwriting. If you're reading this, they didn't wipe everything. Some of you is still real. Page 3. A psychological report. Signature at the bottom. Dr. Ellen Weiss, the court's consultant, the one who testified during the trial that Everett Cole fit all standard profiles of guilt. But the report says something else entirely. Subject C. Cole does not display markers consistent with premeditation or post-traumatic adaptation. Suggests peripheral involvement, possibly manipulated. You scan it again. This report wasn't included in any discovery because it was never submitted, because someone needed a guilty man, and the one man who didn't fit was rewritten. You drop the folder, stand slowly. Your reflection in the screen now flickers. One moment, you, next, someone else. Same eyes, same jaw, but the expression is hollow, like they're wearing your guilt as a costume. And behind that, just beyond recognition, her face, watching, not accusing, just witnessing. You start pacing. What else did they file under your name? What else was buried in truth's graveyard? You pull drawer after drawer. More files, more photographs of events that never happened or didn't happen this way. Each time, your name appears where it shouldn't. Lead testimony, support. B. Source of suppression, directive. B. Loop reinforcement, initiated by B. You back away, stagger to the doorway, try the handle. It won't move. Behind you, the machines whir. A new recording begins unprompted. When truth breaks pattern, the system rewrites the teller. You chose pattern. She chose truth. Now you must choose again. You stare at the file in your hand. Your name, her voice, his sentence. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. And some files don't belong to you until they do. The testimony that wasn't spoken but heard. You don't remember pressing play, but the reel-to-reel is running again. This time, there's no label, no folder, no red string, just sound, her voice, not the sharp, steady version from the courtroom, not the half-erased recordings of her interviews. This one is raw, shaken, as if she's speaking directly into your ear in a room without walls. They said, if I told the truth, it would set things right. But they didn't say who gets to define right. You sit down. It's not voluntary. It's like the chair expected you. I wasn't supposed to testify. Not really. They only let me speak because they'd already erased the words. You stare at the screens. They flicker briefly, sinking. Every version of her lined up at the stand. every voice layered, only one audio stream. It wasn't Everett. It never was. But they needed a name, a focus, something for the algorithm to mold into guilt. The screens distort. Her face smears into data. You try to pause the tape. You can't. Your hand hovers over the button, trembling. They asked if I loved you. I didn't answer. A beat of silence. But the truth is, I trusted you. That's worse. You lean forward. The machine clicks, but the tape keeps playing now without reels. The sound has moved inside the room. Inside you. I knew you'd try to fix it. That's what they counted on. People like you. People who believe in the system are the easiest to break. The words feel etched into your ribs, each one echoing from a place older than the case, older than the courtroom. From the moment you shook her hand, from the second you filed the report. There's no fixing it now, she says. Only remembering, only choosing whether to keep pretending. Your voice enters the room uninvited, a recording you don't recall making. I saw the footage. I knew she wasn't lying, but I followed protocol. Another voice. Overlaid verdict confirmed. Loop integrity preserved. You rip off your headphones. The room doesn't change. The voices keep coming. Footsteps. Your own voice again. From a month before the trial. If we silence her, we stabilize the outcome. You whisper to no one. That's not me. But it was. And somewhere in this loop, the system mistook your compliance for justice. You look up. Every screen now shows the same moment. You in the observation booth, staring down at her as she takes the stand. But this version, she never speaks. She looks straight at the camera, straight at you, raises one hand and points. Your chest tightens. You check your phone. One new message, an audio file, no sender. You hit play. You're not the detective anymore. You're the case. You dropped the phone. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about the truth. It was about control. And her testimony, it was never silenced. You just weren't listening. The verdict that was filed before the crime. There's a drawer you never noticed. Metal, smooth, locked tight with a biometric pad that blinks once as your hand nears then turns green. It opens like it's been waiting for you. Inside a single document. No envelope, no folder, just a verdict slip. Typed, dated, stamped with the courthouse seal. Guilty. But here's the fracture. The date is 2 weeks before the murder ever occurred. You double check, triple check. You scan the barcode. Pull up every backup archive from the court database. Each digital copy says the same thing. Verdict filed, March 4th, 11:06 a.m. Incident reported, March 17th, 2:24 a.m. The crime hadn't happened. The arrest hadn't been made. Everett Cole hadn't even met the victim yet, but the system had already judged him and filed the paper. You take the sheet to the light, examining the ink, not just typed, embossed, signed, your signature in the corner, printed faintly in gray judicial loop 3. 5. Outcome. Integrity, priority, high. You stagger back, knees buckling under the weight of what this means. You didn't just testify. You were part of the decision. The fiction masquerading as justice. The verdict wasn't a response, it was a script. And the trial just a performance. A machine-tested reenactment of punishment, not proof. You pull out the drawer entirely. Behind it, another compartment clicks. Inside a folder labeled Predictive Harm Index, Tier 2. Threats. There's a list. Names, faces. Her name is circled in red. Next to it, typed in Grayscale truth leaker. Witness potential exceeds permissible limits. Recommend removal from trial vector. And under that, your initials, in ink, dated the day before she vanished from the testimony logs. You gripped the edge of the desk so hard the wood creaks. You signed her silence. You whisper it like a prayer or a confession. The screens begin playing something new. A mock trial. All actors, all scripted, but your voice still narrates the proceedings. And in the audience, you see yourself, watching, nodding, believing. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones, especially those with gavels instead of guns. Because in this courtroom, truth is never on trial, just those who try to speak it. And when the system writes the verdict before the crime, there's no such thing as innocence, only permission. The photograph that was never taken but exists. It's there, taped to the underside of her old desk, a Polaroid. No timestamp, no caption, just that dull, muted chemistry only instant film can produce, like memory captured while trying to forget. You peel it off gently. The tape is brittle. The edges curl like they've been untouched for years. You flip it over. Nothing on the back. You study the image. It's the courtroom. Empty. Except for you. Seated in the gallery. Alone. Looking straight into the lens. Except you don't remember this. You were never alone in that room. Not like this. And your clothes different. That coat was destroyed in a fire 6 years ago. But there it is. Crisp lapels. Your left cuff rolled back the way she used to tease you about. And in your lap, blurry but unmistakable, sits a folder. Truth, your fingers go cold. You were never supposed to have that folder. And yet, the photo shows you with it. You squint at the background. A figure behind the witness stand, out of focus, but familiar. Her, mouth open, as if speaking. But if you zoom in, the blur sharpens for a single pixel frame, and in that frozen moment, her mouth forms a single word. Run. The lights flicker. The hum starts again. You hold the photo up to the bulb. Embedded beneath the top layer, barely visible, is a second image. Double exposure. The same courtroom, but on fire. Ash curling in midair. Benches half melted, and your figure still sitting, unmoved. Watching it burn. You turn the photo at different angles. No matter how you twist it, both versions remain, as if the picture exists in two truths at once, one where you watched and one where you caused it. The sound of static grows louder. You check the nearest screen, now showing a loop of her turning toward the camera. Each loop, the image degrades slightly until she's just pixels and teeth. Underneath, a subtitle appears. This is what happens when evidence remembers. You drop the photo, step back, and realize the courtroom was never a place. It was a construct, a filter, designed to stage guilt in palatable terms. And you weren't the audience. You were the actor, the one who read the lines, the one who wore the coat. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about the truth. It was about control. And that photo, that's the proof of your double life. The one you lived and the one they needed you to. The man who wasn't on the record, but was in every frame. He's there again. You don't notice him at first, not in the main image, not where the focus falls, but on the edges, always the edges. In the left-hand corner of the courtroom surveillance. In the background of the parking lot camera the night of the crime. In the reflection on the bus window when she left the final pre-trial interview. Same face, same coat, same quiet. And yet, no one remembers his name. You search the witness list. Not there. Jury pool, no match. Court staff, law enforcement, nothing. You freeze the latest frame one pulled from an external archive you found buried inside an unrelated zoning file. Of all places, there he is, leaning by the water cooler just as you step out of frame, looking directly at the lens, eyes like they've seen you before, not just today, but in other trials, other loops. You run a facial scan, match found, but the name listed isn't real. It's a placeholder, observer 6B, recurrent vector presence, authorized. You scroll further, buried permissions. He's not a man, he's a mechanism, a fail-safe built into the system to ensure consistency across loops. If truth tries to leak, he's there. If verdicts falter, he stabilizes the frame. You open a cross-indexed file labeled Anomalous Entity, Loop Interference Report 4.3. Your name appears under Reported By in a signature you don't remember writing, and the field notes, Subject 6B recognized by witness but not acknowledged by record, suggests passive presence accepted subconsciously, may have observed multiple conflicting testimony versions, possible vector drift contributor. You read it again. He's not hiding, he's known, but not acknowledged, because the second you acknowledge him, you're out. You become part of the variable, and variables, they don't testify. They get erased. You turn slowly. He's standing at the end of the corridor on the monitor now, still, patient. The hum in the room rises like pressure behind your ears. The tape in the machine skips, then rewinds. A new voice plays, not yours, not hers, his. You asked why the truth didn't fix anything. Because truth is an equation that changes when observed. You made the system notice her. That was your first mistake. Now it notices you. You clench your jaw. Step back from the console. The lights in the monitors begin flickering out, one by one, except the center, where his face fills the screen. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the ones who record. The feed goes black, and in the reflection on the blank screen, he stands behind you. But when you turn, only your own shadow remains, the loop that started before the crime. You wake up, or maybe you never slept. The air smells the same, dust, tape oxide, burnt circuitry, but something's changed. There's a ringing in your ears, not like tinnitus, not physical. It's something deeper, a resonance, like the walls are vibrating with a sound you're not allowed to hear. You sit up from the chair. It's back to where it was before the first reel spun. No sign of the screens, no static, no voice, only a journal, hers. Open to the first page now, though last time you checked, that page had been torn out. It reads, "If you're here again, then you've forgotten again." You grip the table. Your vision wavers, not from dizziness, from memory, attempting to surface. The system doesn't delete you. It resets you, because guilt is renewable. As long as you keep waking up and choosing silence, you step into the hallway, short again, claustrophobic. But this time, something's been scrawled along the baseboard in red grease pencil. Loop 0 Eil's first lie. The floorboards creak differently, hollow, but familiar. You walk back to the evidence wall, where drawers have restocked themselves like obedient secrets, folder after folder, each labeled not by case name, but by your reactions. Denial 3.1, rationalization 2.8, collapse 4.5, compliance final. You pick up the one labeled collapse 4.5, inside a photo, your first real case, the one that made your name, the one where the woman confessed after 36 hours of gentle, scripted pressure. Only now, a handwritten note is clipped to the back of the image. She only confessed because he was in the room. Attached is another photo. Observer, 6B. Same coat, same silence. And suddenly, you remember, you've seen him in every trial. Just far enough away to overlook, just close enough to change outcomes. You turn the folder over, and there it is, the loop log. Each trial tracked, each verdict simulated, verified, and stamped for stability, and each ending with a redacted field, truth exit event, blocked. You pull open a drawer labeled Truth Exit. Inside is a single audio recorder. You press play. You weren't supposed to know. She whispers, but that's how you win, isn't it? Knowing and doing nothing, believing the system would come clean on its own. You could have spoken. You were in the room, so why didn't you? You grip the recorder tighter. The plastic casing creaks. Because you know the answer. Because you remember now what they erased. The first time this happened. The real first loop. The time you let the wrong man go down and said nothing. Because silence was easier than shame. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the ones who believe they're not part of the machine. And loops, they don't need your permission. They only need your compliance. The silence that broke the system. You throw the recorder. It shatters. But the voice doesn't stop. Now it's in the ceiling, the walls, inside your breath. You press your palms to your ears. It only gets louder. You erased me to protect the pattern. You let them call it justice because it felt cleaner than truth. But silence isn't passive, it's permission. You stumble back into the room with the monitors. They're all on again. This time, they show every trial you've ever touched, every verdict, every defendant you helped convict, every witness you failed to believe. At the center of each screen, a red dot. At first, you think it's some kind of marker, an edit point. Then you realize it's Observer 6B, always there, in a hallway, in the reflection of a window, in the blurred crowd behind the defendant, watching, recording, intervening when the loop got messy. The voice continues. They called it a justice algorithm, predictive, preventive, but it needed something human to anchor the narrative. That was you. You try to speak, but your throat closes like a door. Your mouth opens, but no words emerge. Because now you remember the silence, the first silence, the one that wasn't about guilt or innocence. It was about doubt. And you crushed it, because the loop demanded certainty, and certainty demands a body. You turn to the table. A new folder has appeared. This one's blank. No label, no logo, no red string. Inside, one page, typed in bold, unrecorded event current. You glance at the monitors. They now show you, sitting in this room, reading that page. The system is watching you in real time. No delay. You're not in the archive anymore. You're the subject. The door clicks, slowly creaks open behind you. But this time, no hallway. Just her, standing in the doorway. Or maybe an echo of her, dressed the way she was on the last day you saw her alive before she vanished from the transcript. She doesn't speak. She just holds up a single item, a mirror. You stare at it, not because you see your face, but because you see the room without you in it. The chair's empty, the folder untouched, the tape machine still. A timeline where you never opened the door, where you walked away, where the silence won. She lowers the mirror, nods once, and turns, vanishing back into the dark. You follow, because the worst truth isn't that you buried evidence. It's that you buried yourself to make the system whole, to make guilt easier. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about the truth. It was about control and silence. Silence is a verdict with no appeal. The room that forgot you ever left. You stepped through the door into what should be the hallway, but the walls are smooth again, featureless. No more file drawers, no exits, no hinges, no past. Just a single chair in the center, facing a monitor, already on, already watching you. There's no welcome message, no eerie hum this time, just a blinking cursor beneath the sentence, "Please explain your actions." You move closer. The monitor reflects you again, but not the version from moments ago. This reflection is clean shaven, younger, no shadows beneath the eyes, no blood on the conscience. The version of you from before the case, before her. The keyboard waits, but your fingers hesitate. Because how do you explain silence? How do you define what you chose not to do? Still, the screen demands something. You start typing. I followed protocol. The cursor flashes angrily. The sentence erases itself. You try again. I didn't know. The screen glitches, rewrites your words. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You slam your fist on the desk. The reflection flickers. Now you're older, gray, alone, wearing the same coat as Observer 6B. Your voice plays over the speaker. It was never about the truth. It was about control. The screen pulses. A final prompt appears. Are you ready to testify? You freeze. Not because you don't want to, but because you finally realize you've never actually testified. You've recounted, you've narrated, you've processed, but you've never truly spoken. Not without filtering, not without protecting yourself from the consequences. That's what she did, and it destroyed her. That's what Everett tried, and it buried him. That's what you're about to do now. The cursor blinks, blames, begins to vanish if you don't respond. You place your fingers on the keys, type one word. Yes, a soft click. The monitor shuts off. The walls retract like an aperture. And in front of you, a courtroom, empty, echoing, real, lit only by a single swaying bulb. At the witness stand, a tape recorder, already running. You walk to the center, sit, take a breath. Then, at last you speak. Your voice cracks at first, but you let it, because control doesn't matter anymore. Only the confession. And the moment you say it, the moment the first truth leaves your lips, you hear the door lock behind you. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the ones who wait too long to speak. But now you have. And the system, it's listening. The truth that didn't set you free. Your voice echoes into the tape recorder. Not loud, not sure, but undeniable. You name names, not just hers, not just Everett's, but yours. You describe the edits, the folders that predated the crimes, the predictive verdicts, the observer. You say things that have never been spoken aloud, not in this timeline, not in any. And for a moment, it feels like a kind of rebirth, like saying it finally breaks the loop. But when you finish, the tape stops. No click, no rewind, just stops, as if it was never meant to reach the end. You reach for it, but it ejects itself violently. The tape unspools. The ribbon snakes across the desk like a dead vein. Then, a printer clicks on behind you. You turn. One page slides out. You step closer. It's your transcript, the testimony you just gave, but edited, heavily. Whole sections are blacked out, names omitted, dates changed. The sentence, verdict was predetermined, replaced with verdict aligned with statistical model. The phrase, "She begged me to stop it now," reads, "The witness was emotionally unstable." You read it again, you want to laugh or scream, but you do neither. You just crumple it slowly and let it fall to the floor. Then you hear it, a creak, in the jury box. You turn slowly. They're there. Every person you wronged, not physically, not ghosts, just presences outlined in shadow, seated in silence. Their heads all turn at once, not accusing, just waiting. And you realize this was never about whether you'd confess. It was about whether the system would ever let it matter. The observer appears at the edge of the room. He doesn't move, doesn't speak. He just raises a hand and presses record. Truth acknowledged. He says, "Loop integrity restored." The courtroom begins to dissolve. Like dust hit by wind, the walls fade first, then the floor, then the shadows in the box. Only your voice remains, echoing. And when you try to remember what you said, all you hear is the edit. Not the real words, just the ones they left behind. You close your eyes, not in despair, but in understanding, because you finally get it. Truth doesn't set you free. It isolates you. You knew, but pretended you didn't. And now that you do, they'll make sure you never forget the confession that rewrote nothing. There's no ceiling now, no walls, no gavel, no verdict, just white, expansive, sterile, like the inside of forgetting. You sit at the edge of a room that no longer contains anything but the tape recorder, still unspooled at your feet. You stare at it, hoping maybe, just maybe, the truth inside it still lingers on the magnetic thread. But you already know better. This wasn't a testimony. It was a containment protocol. The system let you speak because it had already written the response. Across from you now, a terminal blinks awake, the same prompt as before. Please explain your actions. You don't answer. You wait. Wait to see if something different happens. A pause. Then truth acknowledged. Loop restabilizing. Memory realignment in progress. You grip the edge of the table. The edges of your mind tingle like teeth vibrating in a jaw that's clenched too long. The system is preparing to reset you. Erase the awareness, so you'll function again. Obedient, useful, quiet. You stand, shake, breathe in, say her name aloud. No response. Try again, louder, still nothing. You shout it, over and over, but with each repetition, it feels thinner, more fragile, like trying to hold fog in your hands. You reach for the photograph you tucked in your pocket 2 sections ago, the one of her pointing, mouth shaped like run, gone, replaced by a sheet of white paper, blank. At the bottom, a blinking line appears. Would you like to forget again? Yes, no. The cursor blinks. You hesitate. You could leave, forget everything, rejoin the pattern, sleep easier. Or you could resist, try to carry the knowledge, knowing it might tear your mind apart. You place your hand over the screen, not to answer, but to crack it. You press harder. It flickers. Crack. Harder. Another flicker. The lights dim. The system shudders. And for just a second, a single phrase appears beneath the surface. She remembered. That's why they erased her. You scream, but the sound doesn't leave your throat. It loops inward, reverberating in a memory that no longer belongs to you. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the ones who believe they're free. You sit down in the chair again, not to give up, but because that's where this always ends and begins. The loop completes itself. The screen turns black. The recorder winds backward. The system hums, pleased. You breathe. One last thought forming before the dark. Maybe the next version of me won't stay quiet. The loop doesn't end with a bang. It fades like breath on glass. You feel it in the corners of your thoughts, a stillness that hums just beneath consciousness. The truth didn't save you. It didn't shatter the machine or blow open the doors. It waited, it watched, and now it folds itself neatly into the filing cabinet of your mind, like a sealed confession tucked beneath polite conversation. Outside, the rain has returned soft, slow, not loud enough to interrupt your thoughts, just steady enough to remind you that something's still leaking through. A shape moves in the fog behind your window, but it doesn't knock. The system has what it needs: your silence, repackaged as compliance, and your scream echoing endlessly in a courtroom that was never built to hear it. You light a cigarette with hands that remember shaking, even if you don't. The city sleeps. You don't, because even in this quiet moment, you wonder, was she ever real, or just the glitch the program couldn't predict? Was he the man who stood trial ever more than a placeholder, a stand-in for guilt you refuse to carry? And what about you? Are you still in the loop, still replaying it all, with slight variations, waiting for the right version of yourself to make the right choice? Or was this the choice, the silence, the truth, the failure to speak fast enough? You exhale into the dark, watching the smoke curl like secrets up toward the ceiling. For now, you're free. But freedom isn't peace. It's just the absence of noise before the next click begins. End of script. Sleep well and watch your back.